We speak now to the CEO of Business Unity South Africa, CAS Coovadia, about the impact of the violence that's been happening in the region. CAS, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. There's the actual cost damage that business has to deal with here. We heard MEC Ravi Pillay putting that at an estimated 100 million rand. But there's also a huge hit to future investment and business sentiment, isn't there? How's Business Unity South Africa digesting this, CAS?
Well, Devon, there's significant cost. Besides the immediate cost, immediate financial cost, there's cost to people who will lose their jobs as a result of this. It creates a very, very negative impression of our country to investors. Massive trucks burning on the road, people stoning vehicles, major arterial roads being closed. The cost is horrendous at a time when, we in the midst of an economic crisis that's been exacerbated by COVID, and not to also emphasize the point that these actions themselves are significantly negative from a COVID point of view, because they're actually breaking COVID protocols as well, possibly leading to spread of the virus as well. So it's a perfect storm. Mm-hmm. And, we need to see this for what it is. It doesn't matter who the individual concerned is. If an individual has been through a legal process and the courts have made the decision, we've got to respect that decision. The judiciary has been consistent in its approach. It is not being influenced politically. It is not succumbing to public pressure. And we need to respect that. And what we are saying is that the law authorities need to act decisively. We need to weather the storm, but act against what is essentially thuggery at the moment. And we would also urge perhaps the president, under the disaster regulations, given that these actions are also breaking COVID regulations, to, under the authority of the police, maybe mobilize some military people. But we need to act decisively on this. We need to And we need to quell this as quickly as possible.
Let's talk about that presidential response, because you've actually welcomed it coming from President Cyril Ramaphosa, yet you say there's more that needs to be done, and you speak of an intervention just a few seconds ago there on what could possibly happen.
Yeah, so I think that what needs to be done is we need the president and his leadership to show a firm hand here. I'm not in any way minimizing the difficulty of doing that. But I don't think we can afford to allow this to spread. I don't think we as a country can afford, from an investment point of view, from a confidence point of view, to have marauding groups of people essentially breaking the law. Protest is one thing. The Constitution protects protest, peaceful protest, and if people want to peacefully express their dissatisfaction at the Constitutional Court decision, they have the right to do so. But they do not have the right to destroy property. They do not have the right to put people's lives at risk. They do not have the right to create conditions in our country that could exacerbate the socioeconomic problems we have as a country. And I think we need to, as a country, and the authorities in particular, because it is in their power to do so, the authorities need to show a responsible, measured, but firm response to this.
CAS, we've seen some footage, if I can come in there, at major retail stores coming in on social media being looted. And even if these are just opportunists, you have a situation now where the tension is filtering into the economic fraternity. That's dangerous, especially if it's at retail stores, because it sends out a message, as you say. How do you counter that?
No, absolutely. And this is thugs taking advantage of a situation. I saw some of the footage at they thrashing a retail facility somewhere in Durban. We are told, certainly the head of the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa called me this morning and telling me that their intelligence says that this could spread to Gauteng. Now, we can't have that. We can't have, at a time when businesses are struggling to actually keep open because of COVID, at a time when, as a result of COVID, we are forced to close some businesses for periods of time, to then have businesses that are still operating, that are creating jobs, that are protecting jobs, that are providing services to the community. Yep. To have those businesses attacked and looted is totally unacceptable, absolutely from an economic confidence and investment point of view, but also, again, from a human point of view, it puts the lives of people in those shopping centers at risk.
Cass, before I let you go, I want to get your, because of time is against us here, we've had a reaction to some time back to foreign workers on these roads, and we've seen the tensions flare up there. One would imagine that there would have been structures in place or perhaps even lessons learned from that on this very important trade route. Why hasn't that sort of put to test or actually being brought up again?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, Devin. I think that we have to ask what's the state security and intelligence agencies, why they didn't pick this up. I mean, given that it's happened before, and why we weren't better prepared for this. I think that question has to be asked, and we need to learn these lessons. I think that we need to understand that there are forces at play in the country that are bent on destabilizing parts of the country for reasons that have nothing to do with national interest. And we need to have the necessary intelligence. We need to have the processes and mechanisms in place to actually proactively anticipate these things, plan for